Hey there, everybody. Jesse Ray here again. Episode 5. And sorry for the delay a bit there between this and the last one. I'm in the process of switching formats to more of a guest type thing. I got some really cool guests coming up in the next couple weeks. So that's exciting, and as always, if you have any feedback for me, feel free to email me, jesselapodcast@gmail.com. Positive or negative, I'm open to whatever, and if you want to leave any comments or ratings and subscribe, you can do that on my iTunes page and the Google page. So yeah, check that out. And also I have a YouTube channel where I just put up a video of me singing about 16 years back with some of the guys from the Stratosphere. And that's already gotten almost a couple hundred views, so that's pretty exciting, so check that out if you haven't. Pretty good singing for a guy on a ventilator, if I do say so myself. And, being the humble guy that I am, how can I not say that? Anyway, there's, I was going to do a thing on television, but I wanted to do something a little quicker today, since I'm kind of getting ready for the other 2 episodes, and I just watched Neil Morse do his first day of the live broadcast on Morse Fest 2020, and that's a festival he's been doing for the last 6 or 7 years in Nashville at his church, actually, and it's been pretty amazing every year, and I've been wanting to go for a few years, but I haven't had the money or ability to go, and this year, because of COVID and all that shit, he decided to do a virtual show, so some people still went there in person, but he had a lot of people just do a virtual ticket, so that's what I did. And on tonight's show, him and the band that he usually has, the Neil Morse Band, with Mike Portnoy and Bill Hubel and Eric Gillette and Randy George, all kick-ass musicians, and they did nothing but cover songs of classic rock that were really influential to them, and they did a lot of really cool stuff. For me, the highlights were Maybe I'm Amazed by Paul McCartney, and What Is My Love by George Harrison, and they ended the night with Starless and Bible Black by King Crimson, which they had a bunch of people vote for the songs that they wanted to hear the most, and apparently that won by a landslide, and it's easy to see why. It's a prod masterpiece. It goes on like 12 minutes, and they totally killed it, and it was a really awesome show. And one thing I really love about Neil and his music is that in these crazy times where there's a lot of negativity going around, he puts out a very strong message and vibe of love and peace and positivity, and I really appreciate that, because not that many people are doing that in an organic, non-political kind of way, and it's really cool. So that kind of got me inspired to do a top 10 album list, and I was thinking, I could do a top 10 albums of all time list, but that kind of seemed too hard to do, kind of impossible, to be honest. And so I decided I would start because I'll probably do some other lists like this in the future, probably with some other people, some guests too. But I thought I'd start with the top 10 best classic rock albums of all time, in my opinion. And I made a few rules for myself. One was I couldn't repeat any artists, and I decided not to have any subgenres of rock that may have been like older but I think need to be their own thing, like prog and singer-songwriter. So you're not going to hear any Genesis or Yes or Pink Floyd or Bob Dylan on this list. But it's a pretty good list, I think, and it's pretty eclectic. And, yeah, so I'm going to start at number 10, because that's a little more dramatic, I think. And, number 10 is kind of a funny one, because this is a band that I used to, I'm not going to say hate, but I never really appreciated them. It's weird. A lot of what made me appreciate them was watching the documentary that they put out about themselves about 3 or 4 years ago. And it's the Eagles. And the album I picked is a little bit of a cheat, because it's their greatest hits, volumes 1 and 2. And it's the only album on the list that I did a compilation for. But with the Eagles, I really feel like they have some amazing songs on every album. And also, when you see them play live, like in the 70s, there's some stuff on YouTube, there's some stuff in that documentary. You really see what amazing fucking musicians they are. You see what amazing singers Glenn Fry, and in my opinion, in particular, Don Henley are. Don Henley is a really underrated singer, and the fact that he can sing that good while he's playing drums that well is fucking impressive. Like, watching him sing One of These Nights live fucking gives me chills, like, every time. And they had some amazing lead guitarists in the band. They had Bernie Lennon at the beginning, and then after that, they got Don Felder, and then Joe Walsh. And those guys were insane. And, after Bernie Lennon left, they got the two of them. And then you had Joe Walsh in the band too. And his solo stuff is awesome. And the stuff that he did in the James Band is amazing as well. And worth checking out for sure. So, yeah, they did a lot of shit because they write very unassuming, catchy radio songs that you've heard 1,000 times, but I really feel like they're kind of taken for granted. And if you really sit down and listen to those greatest hits albums, there isn't a weak song on them. And there's, you got stuff like Take It Easy, Richie Woman, Desperado is an amazing song, One of These Nights, like I said, and Take It to the Limit, Peaceful Easy Feeling, and then the second disc has Hotel California, which you may have heard it a lot, but I fucking love that song, and every time I hear it, I know all the words, I always sing along to it, and it's just got one of the most rocking guitar outros on any song ever. The way that They went to Matt, Joe Walsh, and Don Felder is incredible, and yeah, it's incredible all around. The only song that's missing, in my opinion, is an instrumental that Bernie Lennon wrote that was on the One of These Nights album. It's called Journey of the Sorcerer, and it's really trippy. It's pretty much an instrumental prog song. And I think they wrote it for Doctor Who, actually, but I don't know if it ever got used. Maybe for a while. But anyway, yeah, the Eagles, they are an amazing band, and they kind of personify the California soft rock sound of the 70s. I would say better than most of the other bands that tried to do that, and the harmonies are amazing, and yeah, they're just crazy. They're a great band. Alright, number 9. This is probably the best pop rock album ever recorded, but I would say it still counts as classic rock, and that album is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. And I think the reason that it counts as classic rock, besides the amazing songwriting and everything, and the singing, is the grit and guitar playing and production that Lindsey Buckingham brings to the whole picture. And when you listen to that album, you can hear beautiful melodies, amazing songs, but then you've got some songs that really fucking rock. And, you know, his guitar playing, like on the Chain, for example, is awesome. And, you know, the singing between him and Stevie Nicks, and then the songs that Christine McVie sings are incredible. They have an amazing rhythm section, and I think every song on that album is pretty incredible. Gold Dust Woman, I mean, Second and News is incredible and a total rocker. And then, like, you know, Dreams comes in, and then Never Going Back Again is fucking great. Of course, Don't Stop and Go Your Own Way is another rocker. I don't know, it's just a great album all around, and it's got such a mix of pretty and rockin', and the production on it is incredible. It's probably one of the best produced albums ever, and I just never get sick of it, and can't recommend it enough. Alright. So number 8 is maybe a little bit of a surprise. It's Leonard Skinner's first album, pronounced Leonard Skinner. And I feel like Leonard Skinner, like the Eagles, is misunderstood a lot because the only songs that anyone knows by them are Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird for the most part. And this first album has amazing songs on it. Every single song, you realize that not only is the band amazing and incredibly good at their instruments, but that Ronnie Van Zant is one of the best songwriters like ever. The guy writes incredible lyrics, and they're very heartfelt. And, you know, they also sort of have a stigma of being racist because they put the Confederate flag up, and I have never seen any indication that that is actually true. They sing about life, and the only song that they, you know, kind of made fun of Neil Young about on was that one because he had written a song Southern Man, calling them out, and it's on Sweet Home Alabama they call him out. But that's about like as far in that direction it ever gets. And every song on their first album pronounced Livingston is great, and it doesn't have a clunker at all. And Tuesday's Dawn is a great ballad. Simple Man is incredible. Poison Whiskey and Gimme Please Steps and Rockin', I Ain't No One. And then it ends with Freebird, which, whether you like it or not, is one of the greatest rock songs ever recorded. And it has become a bit of a joke that people yell out at concerts, but the other thing about Leonard Skinner that was very unique is that besides Blue Oyster Cult, they were one of the only bands to have three guitarists, and the solo at the end of Freebird is three amazing guitarists trading back and forth, and it just gets quicker and heavier, and it's amazing. And also, it probably has never been used to greater effect than in the end of The Devil's Rejects. That's probably the best use of it in a movie. It may be the only use, probably not, but it's definitely the best. Anyway, that's a really good album. If I'm gonna go with, like, the greatest Southern rock albums, I'd probably go with the Allman Brothers, but I decided that they and the Grateful Dead should probably go under jam rock, because they're much more about improvisation and jamming out. I would say that that's probably the best Leonard Skinner album, but they have a few other ones too. They were a great live band as well. Great songwriters, as I said. Alright, on to what are we at? 7. Number 7, I'm gonna go with Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Everybody knows this is nowhere. This was Neil Young's second album and the first album that he did with his backup band Crazy Horse. One of the greatest garage band, hard rock bands of all time. Just totally in the pocket, tight, and he rocked out harder than he'd ever done before on this album. Songs like Cinnamon Girl, Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, Down by the River. He really expanded on the guitar solo style that really only Frank Zappa and Jimi Hendrix had done previously, although I don't think Frank Zappa even really had done many guitar solos at that point, because he was mostly doing his early psychedelic stuff like Freaked Out and we're only in it for the money, which are great albums in and of themselves. But again, Zappa, I decided to leave off the list because he's definitely more prod. Had to keep the list pretty concentrated on basic classic rock, otherwise I would have gotten way all over the place. But yeah, anyway, Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere. Great album. The guitar playing on it is definitely a precursor to heavy metal, which wouldn't really be created until the next year, 1970, when Black Sabbath put out their debut self-titled album. But it's a great album and really rocks out, and you really can't go wrong with a lot of Neil Young. I mean, the guy put out so many albums over roughly 50 years, and there's definitely a few clunkers here and there, but considering the amount of music that I put out, there are a lot of amazing albums. I was tied between putting this one and Lust Never Sleeps, which was his 12th album, came out in like 1978. That album almost had more of a punk rock vibe to it, since it was sort of a reaction to the Ramones and the Sex Pistols. Also a great album. A lot of the albums that came out in the early 70s are amazing as well, like On the Beach, Tonight's the Night, Zuma. And then those are more hard rocking, but then also the mellower, folkier ones you've got like Harvest and After the Gold Rush, which are also some of the best albums he ever did. And I also thought about putting them here, but had to go with Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere. Fucking amazing and totally ahead of its time. Alright, number 6. Gonna go with The Who. And I had a hard time deciding whether I should put Tommy or Who's Next, but I actually decided to go with Quadrophenia. All three of those albums are classics. If you haven't heard them, listen to them as soon as you can, because they're amazing. Tommy came out in 69, I believe, was one of the first concept albums ever recorded. And Who's Next was the next album after Tommy. That was going to be a concept album based on the storyline that Pete Townsend came up with called Lifehouse. But he ended up scrapping that, and it just ended up being a collection of songs, but also amazing. But Quadrophenia, I have to say, is probably, I don't know, it's kind of Time of Tommy is my favorite, and Who's Next, but Quadrophenia just lots harder than any other album they ever did. It's the loudest, most hard rock album they ever did, and you get to hear Pete Townsend and Keith Moon and John Entwistle all going off on their instruments harder than they ever had previously. They're basically like, I mean, The Who always kind of did this. All three of those guys were pretty much always soloing at the same time on every song, and it's just like insane. And they pushed the boundaries for each one of their instruments in ways that few other people ever did. Pete Townsend, I mean, you gotta give him credit. The guy is still alive. He's still writing songs. He wrote every song in The Who, with the exception of a couple songs here and there, written by Entwistle and Roger Daltrey. Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend both sing amazingly on Quadrophenia. It's a double album. It's a concept album, and the storyline is about a kid that's sort of caught in the middle of the gang fights between the mods and the punks, which were these two kind of gangs in England in the mid-60s. Basically just young guys that drank a lot, fought a lot, and they, I don't know what really the differences were between them. I couldn't really see a lot, but I'm sure there's someone out there that knows more than me about that. But they also made a movie with it, just like with Tommy, and the movie's pretty good. But the album is just amazing, and it's just so good. There's so many good songs on it. The biggest hit is probably Love Lean Over Me, which is an amazing song. And Pete Townsend does a lot of singing on a lot of songs as well, besides Roger, and they both are just great. Really, really amazing album. I mean, The Who is another one of those bands that not only pushed the boundaries of rock and roll and created what people know as hard rock. But pretty much every one of the studio albums that they did before Keith Moon died in 1978 or 9, whatever it was, every one of those albums is amazing and worth having and worth listening to. But if you need to start somewhere, probably who's next, but I'd say overall Quadrophenia is the best. Tommy maybe in second place. Alright, number 5. Gonna go with the debut album of the band called Music from Mid Pit. The band are known most famously for being the electric backup band that Bob Dylan took out on tour when he went electric and freaked everybody out. Had everybody in England throwing shit at him because he wasn't a pure folk singer anymore, and all the folkies thought that rock and roll was a total joke. And, but the band were much more than that. They're all 5 guys, an amazing group of musicians, all songwriters, and 3 of them were lead singers in the band. So you got like 3 different singers on the album, so every song ended up sounding different. The other thing about the band is there's really no other band that sounds like them out there. They kind of created the genre of rock and roll known as Americana, which was a kind of a hybrid of country and soul and R&B and rock and roll and folk music, all kind of mixed together, Appalachian folk music in particular. And most of these guys were actually from Canada, so they came down to America and they have their own kind of interesting, unique take on rock and roll. They have all these different kind of influences, and they mixed it all up, and it came out in just an amazing, crazy way. And you've got the amazing singing of Rick Danko and Levon Helm on most songs, and then Richard Manuel on a couple. The guitarist Robbie Robinson wrote most of the songs, even though he didn't sing a bunch. But it's just an amazing album from beginning to end. The keyboards that start Tears of Rage, the opening song, that always gives me chills because my dad used to play that album all the time when I was a kid, so that always takes me back. It's got the song The Wait, which everybody should know. If they don't, you probably know it. Even if you don't know, you know it. It's the Take a Load Off Fanny song that's on classic rock all the time. That song's amazing. The lyrics are all great. It's got a couple covers of Bob Dylan, most notably I Shall Be Released. The band was great, and their first 2 albums, which was that one, and the second album was just self-titled The Band, are both total classics. Every song on them are amazing. They had a few pretty good albums after that, but then most notably they made a movie of their last concert in the late 70s that was directed by Martin Scorsese, called The Last Waltz, and if you have not seen that, you should definitely go see it as soon as you can. It's by far one of the best, if not the best, I would say, in my opinion, timeless, stop making sense by the Talking Heads as the 2 best concert films ever made. Just amazing. It has all these incredible guests in it, like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, and it's just great. Totally amazing. Great band, very underrated. Alright, number 4. Gotta go with the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Electric Ladyland. All three of Jimi Hendrix's first three albums are amazing and classics. Are You Experienced, Access Bold as Love, and then the third album, Electric Ladyland. The thing that puts that one a little bit above the first two for me is that this was the album when Jimmy basically mastered the art of the studio and using sound effects, backward masking on his guitar solos. All of the songs flowed into one another. It was recorded at a studio that he funded and built with Eddie Kramer called Ladyland Studios, and he was going to record all the albums from this point on there because he can basically have total control and make the albums sound however he wanted. And I mean, just like on the first two albums, his guitar playing is transcendent. The guy basically created and opened up the new style of psychedelic hard rock guitar playing in a way that no one really, in my opinion, has come close to ever since. And I mean, there are people that are technically better than him, but as far as like influence and changing the whole idea of what electric guitar could sound like with feedback and just the way he played left-handed, there's really no one that touches Jimmy, and there's some amazing songs on it. Voodoo Child, Slight Return is probably his best, heaviest. It's not like a merman I should turn out to be. It's got a lot of great songs, and it just flows amazingly well. It's a great album to drop acid to, and you know, he would have kept making albums there, but then he ended up dying just like a year later, and his next album, he recorded a film album, and that album would have been pretty great, I'm sure. It kind of had more of a funk and soul influence sound than the hard rock sound of his first three albums, but they ended up collecting most of the tracks that he had finished and put them in at least as close to the order that they thought he wanted it in, and released it in the 90s on an album called First Rays of the New Rising Sun. And that album is pretty much as good as the first three. And then you've also got the album Band of Gypsies, which was a live album he recorded with two of his buddies that weren't in the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Jimi Hendrix Experience had no Lennon on bass, and God damn it. Okay, I'm gonna remember the drummer, but then I'm blanking. It's gonna come to me. Anyway, one of the best drummers on the planet. The guy just killed it. And then on the Band of Gypsies albums, he recorded that with two of his buddies that he grew up with. Buddy Miles was on drums, and also said he was from another amazing band from the 60s called the Electric Flag, that if you haven't checked out, you should definitely listen to. They have this incredible weird mix of rock and roll and soul, and Mike Bloomfield, one of the greatest guitarists ever from that era, who also died young. He's in that band. Anyway, yeah. First Rays of the New Rising Sun, Band of Gypsies, and then the first three Jimi Hendrix albums are sort of like his classic canon. But if you haven't, you know, check out Electric Ladyland. It's definitely worth sitting through from beginning to end. Alright, number 3, gonna go with Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. Most people tend to know with Led Zeppelin 4, the album that has Stairway to Heaven on it, Rock and Roll, Black Dawn, but Houses of the Holy I've always liked a little bit more. It's the album that came out after 4, and it's just a little more eclectic, and they sort of went beyond the basic hard rock, blues, or folk idioms that they had been in the first 4 albums. The first song on it, Song Remains the Same, is just amazing and somewhat proggy, has like kind of different sections, and then it goes into a song called the Rain Song that's really slow and mellow. Then there's a song called Over the Hills and Far Away, which is one of the classics. It starts out very mellow, folky, and then it just kicks into a hard rock groove halfway through. There's a funk song in the middle, and then there's a song called No Corner, which is amazing, very spacey and trippy and heavy, and the lyrics are all about Thor and the Norse gods and, cool Marvel Comics references, and then it ends with a song called The Ocean, which is just beautiful, and, John Paul Jones, John Bonham, Jimmy Page, just like The Who, all 3 of them really pushed what bass drums and guitar could sound like. Jimmy Page, he as well, just blew up what electric guitar could be, and along with Hendrix and Townsend and Zappa, they were the ones that really pushed and changed what lead guitar rock could sound like. Eric Clapton as well. I think Eric Clapton's a little overrated, but I still love him and like him. But I definitely think his stuff with Cream and Blind Faith is a lot better than his solo stuff. And Derek and the Dominoes as well, the album he did with Dwayne Allman of the Allman Brothers, and Delaney and Bobby as well. Eric Clapton's great too, but just didn't rock out quite as hard or as ferociously, I guess you might say, as these other guys. So I had to have Zeppelin on there. Again, another band that pretty much every one of their albums until John Bonham died anyway, at least up through the album Presence, I would say are all worth having and listening to all the way through. Led Zeppelin 1, 2 were amazing. The double album Physical Graffiti that they put out after Houses of the Holy is incredible. All the shit's great. You can't go wrong with Zeppelin for straight up good hard rock. Number 2. Alright. Had to go with the Beach Boys. It was a little dicey if the Beach Boys were gonna make it to number 1, but you can probably guess which band ended up at number 1. But for the Beach Boys, it was a close one between Pet Sounds, but I had to go with Smile. The album that Brian Wilson was going to follow up the amazing Pet Sounds with, and it was going to be a lot more psychedelic and out there, and he wrote the song Good Vibrations before recording the album Smile, and that was probably one of the most amazing singles, definitely one of the most incredible songs ever made and recorded in terms of the recording style and the different sections and the way it was influenced by classical music and just used all these instruments that weren't ever heard on pop rock songs previously, and he was doing psychedelics and opening his mind musically and becoming an amazing composer and master of the studio. Pet Sounds was evidence of that alone. That was the album that sounded nothing like the early Beach Boys surf and car rock and roll type songs. Totally made with classical instrumentation. Beautiful, beautiful songs, and one of the best albums ever. But with Smile, he went even more out there, and he got this really cool avant-garde 21-year-old songwriter guy that lived in LA named Van Dyke Parks, who also has some amazing solo albums of his own worth checking out. His first album, Song Cycle, is amazing. Anyway, he got him to write all the lyrics, and he recorded the whole album in all these weird different sections, and pasted them together, and he recorded a whole bunch of it, but it was taking so long, and he was getting a lot of pressure from the record company to finish it, and then there were certain people around him, most notably Mike Love, who was one of the other singers in the Beach Boys, the guy that sang a lot of the Collar Hot Rod songs, and he was convinced that Pet Sounds was a mistake and that they should go back to the old sound of the early surf hot rod shit, even though Brian Wilson was like, no one likes that, it's not hip, it's not cool, the Beatles are doing this totally crazy psychedelic stuff and we need to be doing something like that. But Michael Love just would not have it and kept giving him shit, and basically Brian just kind of broke down and gave up, and it was sort of the start of a long period of mental illness and problems for him, but they did record a fair amount of it, and even though a lot of it didn't come out, pieces of it did come out here and there on other albums. But then in 2004, Brian actually got it together and decided that he was gonna do it and finish it with his backup band, and he did, and he put it out, and that version was actually really good considering how old he was, and it wasn't the Beach Boys, but it still sounded really good, and but a few years later, they put out a box set of all the Smile sessions, just like they did for Pet Sounds. And both those box sets are incredible and amazing. You can hear just all the different pieces and recordings that went into both albums. And the Smile box set actually has a complete re-recorded using all of the old recordings with the Beach Boys on the album from beginning to end as it was supposed to sound like. And it has three movements. The first is the Americana movement. It's sort of all about like the history of America from a psychedelic perspective. The song Heroes and Villains is at the beginning after a really beautiful acapella opening by the Beach Boys, and then the second movement is called The Child is Father to the Man, and that has some of the most beautiful songs. I would say that the ballad in the middle called Surf's Up is probably the prettiest pop song ever recorded, and it's just amazing and makes me cry half the time when I hear it. And then the third movement is about the different elements. It's kind of goofy, but the thing is that he did things on this album that were just as out there and just as trippy as anything the Beatles were doing, and it ended up being an amazing, amazing piece of music, and I highly recommend you check it out. Alright, we gotta keep it big, numero uno. And yes, you probably guessed it, it's an album by the fucking Beatles. And there are people that kind of say the Beatles are overrated and they're not the best band ever, but I call total horseshit on that because the Beatles changed rock and roll more than any other band. They were four buddies that just ended up together. They ended up having three of the best songwriters and singers in history in the band with Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison. And even Ringo Starr wrote a couple good songs here and there. But started, with Rubber Soul, which was the album where they smoked pot before recording it. That started to change their entire sound and what they were trying to do. And then, of course, with the album Revolver, after they dropped acid, everything changed, and all the albums from that point till they broke up were just amazing and perfect. And but instead of going with Revolver and Sgt. Pepper the way that most people do, can you go catch my dog and walk him in? My dog is being a psycho. Oh, Disney, why must you interrupt my podcast? Anyway, I had to go with Abbey Road, which is the last album that they ever recorded together. It was not the last album that was released, however. The last album that was released was Let It Be. And Let It Be had a couple really good songs on it, most notably, I would say, McCartney's ballads, Let It Be and The Long and Winding Road, but they were fighting a ton when they made it, and it was produced by Phil Spector, not George Martin, and it ended up getting kind of overproduced, at least as far as a lot of the people in the band felt, and they just decided that they needed to do something better. And so Abbey Road is definitely there. Let's get back to the studio and make something amazing that blows everybody's minds and shows everyone why we're the greatest band on the planet, and get George Martin back in the producer's chair. And that's what they did, and while I love every Beatles album, again, every studio album that they made until they broke up, not like the compilations, but, Please Please Me, and, Hard Day's Night, that early stuff, and then, Everything Done Till the End, the White Album. It's all amazing, and every song on all those albums is good, and Abbey Road just, I think, in my heart, is the album that just makes me the happiest. It's got total rockers on it, Come Together and She's So Heavy by Lennon. You've got two of the prettiest songs that George Harrison ever wrote, Something and Here Comes the Sun. And then a lot of Paul songs were great, Oh Darling. I mean, man, he fucking belts it out on that song so much and so well. And Then you've got one of Windows' funnest songs, Octopus's Donated, probably the second most known Windows song. That's the Yellow Submarine. Even though I believe Lennon and McCartney wrote both of those. And then probably my favorite part on the whole album is the second side, which is the medley of songs that McCartney wrote for the most part, but then there's like a couple songs written by Lennon in there as well, like Me, Mr. Mustard and Polythene Pam, but you've got just some amazing stuff, like Because, which is a good Beach Boys homage, and then You Never Give Me Your Money, one of the prettiest ballads that McCartney ever wrote, and then it starts rocking out, and it goes through all those different songs into the reprise of You Never Give Me Your Money, into You Better Carry That Weight, which is a great song, into the end. And the end is great because not only is it just a rocking song that has the only Windows style drum solo in it, it also has McCartney and Lennon and Harrison trading off on guitar solos, and then it goes into the line at the end, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Probably one of the best lines ever written, and a great summation of the entire ethos and belief system of the Beatles and the types of things that they were trying to say in their songs. And it's just awesome, and I never get sick of it. And yeah, number one, the big number one. So there you have it. That's my top 10, and I hope you enjoyed it, found it kind of interesting. If any of you people out there listening have not sat and just listened to any of those albums from beginning to end, I highly, highly recommend that you do so. Start with number one and work your way back. And yeah, that was a fun list. I'm probably going to do, like I said, more lists like this in the future, hopefully with some guests. And speaking of guests, as I said, there's going to be some really cool guests in the next couple episodes. Hopefully that's going to be more of a format from here on out. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, rate. I love you guys. Tell your friends. Have a good one. Rock on.